whenever we are shopping or whenever we are spending our money on anything, there is a reason why we choose those things above everything else. And the main reason is because that product that you're buying actually does what you need it to do. So I'm looking right now at Kareen's comment. I'll read it again. She says, my favorite product would be Talaba. It's a food delivery app in the GCC. That's where a big chunk of my money goes. I love that I can schedule my food deliveries and even set up my recurrent orders deliveries for my favorite restaurant, which means Talaba did its own work to make sure that it can provide those specific benefits to the potential customers that it was willing to appeal to. All right, so that's just something I'm going to want you guys to keep in mind as we proceed. Um, but yeah, just going through everything again. My name is Tafadzwa Chiganga. And I'm just going to take you through more business development targeted content. I was listening to Tammy speak just before me, and I realized that there was some overlap. So I literally was changing my slides as he was speaking to make sure that we cover more of the things that are linked to business development. So today we're just going to cover a bit about the product, and not brand identity, but business model. And then we can go into the question and answer segment. So it's just a very short presentation. But like just I said, I am the founding principal of Mzambringa. Mzambringa is a venture studio. We support entrepreneurs to build sustainable, growth-ready and investor-ready businesses. And so when we are discussing topics of business development, I feel very excited because it's actually my passion. And I think I'll touch on this just now before we get into more around the product. So whenever you're setting up a business, that business has to be at the core of uh, what you believe in. What you're setting up has to be something linked to what you believe in or what problem you're trying to solve in the world, right? So the reason behind, I don't know if any of you, and maybe we can also use the chat box for this next round of questions, is if you can imagine what do you think is the main reason or the main differentiator between a successful entrepreneur and a non-successful entrepreneur, not a predictor of the success of an entrepreneur. Let me put it that way. What do you think is the biggest predictor of the success of an entrepreneur? Curious to hear what you guys think. What do you think is the most important thing an entrepreneur has to have for them to be able to succeed in setting up and running a business? I'm listening in and I have the chat box open to hear what you guys have to say. All right. Miriam says visibility. Yetunde says resilience. Mo says like 8 extra lives. And then Karine says ability to network, pitch, and persuade. Israel says the network and community. And Michael says a product that solves a need. Right. So I think 2 of you got this right on the mark. One was Yetunde and the second one was Mo. Resilience is the biggest characteristics that would determine the success of an entrepreneur. Having like 8 extra lives or maybe 80 extra lives or 800 or 8,000 extra lives is going to be very important because it determines your willingness to learn, your ability to fall and get up and keep doing whatever you're doing. And it sets the tone for the growth mindset because it's going to be a challenging journey. You're going to be beat down multiple times. I know a lot of people are sort of encouraging, it's good to have living paycheck to paycheck is hard, or I need to be my own employer and stuff like that. All of that is good talk, but when push comes to shove, paycheck to paycheck is much better than invoice to invoice because sometimes you invoice today and you're paid in 6 months. Sometimes you invoice next week and you're paid in a year. And so the goal of entrepreneurship should not be your immediate goal should not be to make money. Your immediate goal should be to solve a problem for a significant number of people. If you're able to solve that problem for people, they're going to come to you instead of you trying to push and push for that product to be bought. Anyway, so when you're building that product, when you're building a business, the very first question that we have for you is, do you have the right product? And when we're looking at the right product, we're looking at one, the product itself, and also the target customers that you're willing to attract, right? And for you to get that right product, you cannot get away from market research. A lot of us tend to build businesses in a laboratory where we have an imagined or our perception of the problem, and then we start developing a solution to it without understanding exactly how the supposed customer or the supposed affected by the problem is actually experiencing the problem. So the very first thing we should do, and it's not supposed to happen once, it should happen multiple times throughout your entrepreneurship journey, is market research. Market research is going to help you understand the perspective of the customer in terms of the problem. It's going to help you understand what challenges they're facing so that if you're looking to solve a problem for them, you're going to offer exactly that which they're looking for. And even when you're doing your marketing and branding work, like Tommy was saying, you're going to use the communication, the words, the positions that link to exactly where your customers are going to be, what their pain point is, and how they're going to interact with that product. But you can only know that when you spend time with the customer. So the very first thing as an entrepreneur to do is to do thorough market research. You do it when you have an idea to see if people would be interested in that kind of solution that you want to offer, to see if people will be willing to pay money for that solution that you're offering. And then you do it again when you have developed a solution. You take it, whether it's a product or service that you're offering, you offer it to the same group of customers if you can get them, to give you a feel and a taste. Okay, is this product doing it for you? What would you improve if you were to buy this product? And then you go back and forth until you have that minimum viable product or the ideal product for your customer. I think from the minimum viable product, you will do a lot of market engagements as well, just to understand exactly what your customers are looking for. So that market research is critical in coming up with the right product. And then from the market research, you're going to be able to fully define the value proposition. And by value proposition, we're saying, what exactly are you offering your customer? And we'll go back to Karin's comment again earlier on the chat about Talabi, I think. Let me just have a look and find it. She says, my favorite product would be Talabat. It's Talabat, yeah. It's a food delivery app in the GCC, right? I love that I can schedule my food deliveries and even set up recurrent orders or deliveries from my favorite restaurants, right? So what it means is Talabat took the time to understand who is the actual customer, and we'll get to that. But what is the challenge that people are facing that would require them to use a food delivery app? The idea is not to go out and create a food delivery app. The idea is to be able to use a food delivery app as a solution to people's challenges. So I imagine Karine may be having issues of like, oh, I'm working or I'm at school. I come back from work every day and I have to kind of figure out what I'm going to eat. Or I have to go to the market and I don't have time to go to the market, or I don't have time to cook. And so I would rather just have these things. And if I like something, I can schedule for it to come recurrently, and maybe I can have this every Thursday, and then I can have this every Friday, which sort of clears the chunk or the work that she has to do, which makes her life so much easier for her. And I'm speaking for Karine, and she's here, and she says, exactly. Thank you for that, but thank you for confirming that. So it means that Talabat took the time to really understand what challenges and pain points the customers were facing, and then to present the customer with exactly what they're looking for, that it's impossible for them to resist using that product, especially if you are new in the market, if there is no competition in the market. Where there's competition in the market, you now have to kind of, because everybody's sort of offering the same service, you now have to introduce differentiators between you and the other players in the market. And that's another level of market research that you need to do to understand, okay, what are my competitors doing and what are they missing in terms of what the customer is looking for, and what can I bring into my products to make that a bit more different and for it to stand out. I think there's so many handbag manufacturers in the world, but there's a reason that a Prada bag costs as much as it does, a Gucci bag costs as much as it does, and a Louis Vuitton bag costs as much as it does. Because they've taken the time to understand what people are looking for. And to be honest with you, a person who's buying a Louis Vuitton bag or a Prada handbag is not really looking for somewhere to put their clothes to carry them around. They're really looking to make a statement. They're looking at positioning themselves in the ecosystem where they work or function, to make a statement about their wealth, where they are in society, which is very different from just having another bag. Because if it's just a bag to put things, nothing will stop you from getting a Ghana must go. It's cheap, it's affordable, it's readily available. So that too will do the work, right? So I think the goal is to understand, like, what exactly are we giving the customer? What are we offering our customer? If you look at right now, maybe the iPhone 16, I believe, it's almost like a creator's dream. It's made for people that love to create content, and it's offering those people multiple ways of doing so and offering them a good quality of product after they've done their content creation, which means they have studied the market and said, who's buying the phones the most? Who needs a phone? Who needs a phone that has all of those things? And it's most likely a creator. If you're looking at people like me who are more office oriented, who are sort of looking at reports, signing documents, and all of that, we have a different phone. That's probably the Samsung Z phone, like the Z6, for example. It allows you to do so many things on the go, to read documents comfortably and all of that. And when they were designing the Z phone, they had a specific person in mind as well. And who would use this phone? Who needs a phone like this more than anybody else? So the value proposition, what you're offering your customer, should be very, very clear. All right. It should be clear to you, and it should be clear to your customer. And again, when we're talking about that value proposition, it's something that you usually should be able to make in a statement. I'm not going to share with you right now because of time, but I'd encourage you to look up the value proposition canvas. Value proposition canvas. Maybe I should put that in the chat box. If you can look at it, then you might be able to see what it requires you to do. So let me just do this. It allows you to then understand what you're offering to the customer in terms of their pain points, what they need, what they're looking for, and how you can actually address that comfortably or directly. And then the last part is actually doing a customer profiling. So when you're profiling your customers, I'm not sure if Tommy already spoke about this, because it links very, very closely to marketing. But when you're profiling your customers, you're literally defining who the person who's likely to use your product is. So you're defining whether they're a man or a woman, or it doesn't matter. You're defining their age. You're defining their level of income. Sometimes you can define where they stay, maybe what car they drive, where they shop. All of those details, the skin color they have, the hair type they have, all of those depend on the kind of product that you're actually selling. Are they educated or not educated? Are they tech savvy or not tech savvy? Are they on social media or not on social media? All of these details come in defining who your target customer is. And the target customer is a person you expect to buy your product, which means you have worked with them and engaged with them through the market research. You have understood their need and have addressed it using that value proposition. And you can now look at them and say, okay, so if we're going into the marketing of this product, where should we put it? Is my customer usually on Instagram or they are on X? Is my customer usually driving to work or from work? Which means, should I put an advert on radio? Do they listen to the radio or not? Or they listen to podcast, which means I should put my advert with a podcast instead. Or should I put a billboard on their way to work because they usually work in this kind of area? The customer profile gives you all the details you need to know about your customer, which helps you to target your approaches, whether it's your marketing, your explanation of the product, your design of your product, your what they call the 4 Ps, the marketing mix, which is your price, your product, your promotion, and your packaging. All of these are going to be attractive to the customer. So when you have the right product, it's just a matter of letting the right people know that you have the right product. If the right people know that you have the product will sell itself because it will be addressing the particular challenges that that particular group of people have. And because it's a real challenge, it's a real pain point, it's a real problem that you're solving for them, they will automatically be coming back for more. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now, what we've just talked about is understanding whether or not we have the right product. Once you have the right product, you want to plug it in now to a right business model. And what I have now on screen is a business model canvas of a professional training and coaching business. So when you're looking at your business model, you have to answer a couple of questions. Okay, the first one, which is right here. I hope you can see my mouse. Can you guys see my mouse? Can you guys
can see your mouse.
Okay, fantastic. So when you have developed the value proposition that we talked about in the previous slide, so you have it here as your first stop. From the value proposition, you go again to your customers. So the customers are here. I don't know why they designed it to be like this, to be moving in bits and pieces, but for some reason, that's the way it's structured. So you have your customers on the other side, on your right-hand side. And here you're filling in the customers that you've identified already. Now, to create an entire business model, you're literally creating an ecosystem around your product. And that ecosystem is going to define some key issues or structures that you have to keep in mind and work with together to make sure that the business actually becomes a running machine that can move your product from one end to the other. So from the production or creation of a service to the customer. So you have to sit down and do your business model canvas. I would encourage you to do that because it helps you answer some of the questions that you might need to answer. For example, if this is your customer, what kind of relationships are you going to have with your customers? How are you going to be contacting them? How are you going to be interacting with them? How are you going to be speaking to them? And that connects as well to the channels. So you have this relationship with your customer. How are you going to get the product from you to the customer? What channels are you going to use? How are they going to know that that product exists? And then you're going to talk about the costs incurred, costs associated with the processes that you've just defined. Okay, fine. So I have this customer, I'll reach them like this, and this is how I'm going to give them the product, and this is my product. What costs are associated with getting all of that done? So when you define the costs that are associated with getting all of that done, you kind of have an idea of the gaps that you have. Okay, fine. I need to reduce this cost. I need to reduce that cost. I need to reduce this cost or manage this cost. There's no way I can run away from it. The first way of managing or reducing or handling your cost is to match it with the revenue. So you're going to ask yourself, how on earth am I going to make revenue with this product? Am I just selling a product as it is? Do I put it in a supermarket, or do I want to have a pop-up shop specifically for this product, or I'm going to sell it online? Or maybe I'm going to engage people to come and use it with me. Maybe it's a gym that you have. So depending on that, you're going to have different sort of revenue streams. Maybe you have one main revenue stream. You think again around your business, is there any other way that you can make money from the product that you have, targeting the customers that you have? In some instances, you find that you don't have one specific customer. You may have 3 target customers. It could be an individual, a business, or a group of individuals, or individuals in different categories with different profiles. And when you're selling to them, maybe you can sell the product in different ways. Some products, when you're selling them to individual customers, will be different when you're selling them to a corporate company. So you have to list the kind of revenue streams that you're going to get. And in today's world, there's a lot of grants and awards available. So you can also look into that and see how it's possible for you to acquire a grant or an award for the promotion of your business. And then from there, when you now understand the revenue streams that you have and you now understand the cost structure that you have, you then look around and say, what other things do I need that can help me to be profitable, right? So it's not all of your costs that you should incur. Maybe if you partner with certain people or certain organizations, it will help to reduce your costs. If, for example, you have key resources that you're using in the organization, maybe you need CapEx, maybe you need to build your own platform, or maybe you need to have your own delivery system. If you're Talabat, for example, you have a delivery app on the phone. Maybe it's easier for you if you then develop a network of riders, or you partner with an organization that's managing a riders network to make sure that your products move to the customers easily? Or what key activities are you going to be doing to make sure that this happens very well? Coordinating with the different restaurants that are involved, that are listed on your platform, ensuring that there's a clear process SOP for each one of them to follow, clear standards, and all of that stuff, right? So once you have sort of figured out the product, the customer, you then come to the stage where you're like, for me to do this, what do I need to get it done? What am I missing? And then how can I make money from the business to cover the costs that I have? And then how can I mitigate some of the costs or risks that I incur, looking at the different activities or resources or partners that I have to make sure that my business is more profitable, that I can retain more of what I am making. So I'd say when you're looking at scaling your business, it's going to be key to have these two things done well. One, you have a very, very good product that's relevant to a market that you understand. And number two, you have a very good business model that can take that product from wherever you produce it or create it and take it directly to the exact customer that you need. And in the process, you're able to make money. And I think this is where I'll end, looking at the time that we have. And I'll open the floor for questions. I did a lot of talking, more than I usually like to do. But yeah, let's hear from you guys. Any questions? Or any aha moments? I believe I'm speaking to some entrepreneurs. Anything that stood out for you? Anything that was interesting or surprising? Feel free to share.
Hi, Tafadzwa.
Hello.
Brilliant presentation. I'd say one key observation that I noted when you were presenting, is that generally the immediate goal of a startup should be to address a problem
Mm-hmm.
and not to necessarily turn a profit and to cash in, especially at the early stages. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
that that's particularly interesting, and I think it concurs with Paul Graham's assessments sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
it differs from my own approach when I was at the University of Zimbabwe, and we were in a little startup club. All of us were particularly solving problems to just get money. That was the
Mm-hmm.
exact point at that stage. But I
Yeah.
think the fact that you mentioned that the immediate goal should be to address a problem. And
Yeah.
in my own view, I think maybe once you've addressed a problem, or when you're on your way to addressing a problem, if there's a need for you to be profitable, you can just pivot slightly, but still maintain you're on that particular track to achieving a particular goal and mission. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for that particular point.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'll say this, solving a problem and making money should not be mutually exclusive. They are they are the same. It's an issue of the timing and the priority it takes. At the end of the day, you want to make money. But what you need to understand is if your product is doing what it needs to do, the money will be chasing you. It's not for you to chase it. The money will be chasing you. And you'll find that if you're doing product development or setting up a startup and your focus is too much on the money, you may not be willing to spend money on things that you should be spending money to be able to solve the problem. So at the end of the day, you end up with a substandard product that's not able to really solve the products for people. And then you can't even really make money out of it. So yeah, I think it's not mutually exclusive, but it's just like priority levels, like you were saying. Thank you for that. Anyone else who has a comment, an aha, or a question? All right. I think from a look of things, I either did an exceptionally good job in explaining, nobody has questions, or I did the worst job possible that nobody understood anything sufficient enough to ask any questions. So I'll pass back to you. Okay, Karine, thank you. So I've been with Karine from the beginning to the end. She says great session. Thank you so much.
That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Tafadzwa. Uh, I really enjoyed it.
Thank
Quite
you.
comprehensive, and I think you went straight for the nuts and bolts of brand design and product development. I think a lot of people will take it into account as they develop their businesses or try to start their businesses in the future. So at this point, in the absence of any questions, considering the fact that we're close to the end time that was scheduled, I think we can close. So today's focus was focusing on oh, hi Mo, please unmute yourself. The floor is yours. Hi Mo.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. This was
Yeah.
an amazing session. Let me lower my hand right away. So I think my key question is around pretty much, I think, similar to what we discussed when we discussed the other session, is a lot of sorry about that, that's my nephew. A lot of startups are at the point where they are still bootstrapping and money is tight. So we know that brand development and business development generally is it's very important. But at what point do you recommend that someone who is trying to scale from zero, right, start actually putting a lot of consideration into hiring external expertise to help with some of the things that we've discussed in this session? Because for a lot of people, when they're thinking about assessing their target markets, trying to figure out where to go to for product market fit, a lot of it is personal, individual research, desktop-based research. They don't really see, in fact, right now, because even to creating, brand assets, a lot of people, the first time that they would create any sort of brand assets, they would go to Canva or similar apps to do it and things like that. The first time people are creating, any sort of business development plan, they would sort of do it themselves. So at what point do you now say, you know what, it's necessary for you to get a professional in?
All right. That's a very good question, Mo. Thank you for sharing that. I think from my own personal experience, I think that as soon as you start a company, if you don't have the skills in two main areas, it's going to be important for you to get those skills. The first area is finance and financial management, because every single dollar you spend needs to be recorded and accounted for. And usually it's the journey, it's the recording, the bookkeeping that happens in finance that helps to tell the story of the journey that you're coming from. What's important when you get to the point of engaging investors or showcasing to investors, you want to show them that you have done the work in the past. You've tried different things that didn't work. You've done this, you've done that. And the best way of doing that is one, with your financial records, and two, which is a second rule I think is very important, with someone to manage your social media. I think social media has become critical in terms of determining the success and the failure of a business, right? Especially because with social media, you can also showcase what you're doing. You're taking pictures every single day or event or moment, and you're posting it and telling the story. And as you're growing, you're in the process growing your own following and growing the interest in your business. So a social media platform allows you to share that information. I think it's important for you to have your emails set up, expensive as they may be. If you're a serious business, no one is going to take you seriously when you're sending your work stuff from from a Gmail account. We might like to accept it or not accept it, but the moment somebody sends you something from a Gmail account, they don't sound very serious. So I'd say it's very important for as soon as you can afford it, and make this sooner rather than later, to hire somebody who helps you with your finance and bookkeeping, to hire somebody who helps in creating content, and to hire somebody who's going to do your social media management. And the social media management and content creation can be the same person, because the more you record everything that you're going through and everything that you're doing, the better your story is going to be. And remember, engagement with investors is really about storytelling. It's really about showcasing how far you have gone already without them while you're bootstrapping, and why it's important for them to support you because you're actually on the ground doing something. And I think when you have a good following on social media, that helps a lot. It's a lesson that I have learned. I was one of the people who used to say my work will speak for me. And my most recent lesson is work doesn't talk, you talk. So you have to make sure you're talking about your work wherever you go, however you go, and you have that record in. My advice would be, if you don't have the skills, then better hire somebody who does. And sometimes we might have some shady skills, like you can take some nice-ish pictures with your camera, but when you post it on social media, it makes you look unreal. It makes you look unserious. And I think it's important for you to just make sure you have good quality pictures. Even if you're bringing somebody in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a month to do that for you, they can come and do that. And while we're talking about hiring, one key way you can hire affordably is obviously doing part-time, but also hiring interns or volunteers that can come and help you to do what you're doing. Obviously, if you're having a rotation of volunteers over a long period of bootstrapping, you don't have the same quality of work that you want, but at least you have somebody there making sure that that work has been done or is being done. And then I also say it's important to have a website, because whenever you finally get to speaking to any investor, they're going to want to see what your website is going to tell them. So yeah, I think that's my response to that, Mo.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Tafadzwa, for the response. I haven't seen any additional questions yet. If you do, feel free to raise your hand if you do have a question. Okay, I think that means that we don't have any questions. Oh yeah, there's a question from Anikpi. Hi, Tafadzwa. There's a question
Yeah.
from Anikpi, which reads as
Okay.
follows: what are the brand elements in early stage startups should define early on?
All right. So here I think Tome touched on this. I think you definitely need to have your logo. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be there. You can always do a rebrand when you have money to hire a creative team to get in and shake things up. But I think you should have a logo. You should have a tagline. You should have some basic colors, and I think you should have the email signatures and the fonts. This is just a standard. So it's pretty much your initial brand book, because it works to just standardize your offering. And it also helps to create a memory of who you are. Because when people start seeing the same colors and logo and fonts associated with you, they start recognizing you from afar. So I'd say those are the key ones.
Thank you, Tafadzwa. Inekwi, I hope your question has been well answered. Um, And with that, we're 7 minutes over the